All right, we are live. I saw we had a couple people waiting in the chat, and so hello to you guys. But in case you are confused and wondering who I am, my name is Antonio Bryce. I am a comic book creator, and you can catch my book. It's called Brand Way of the Gun. It is the sequel. You can also get the first book all on my Indiegogo, which is live. We have just passed $30,000 yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah, go to ikaripress.com and get that. And let me see here. Okay, so let me run down here. You know how we do. We gotta get all the little plugs in there. Okay, so also we are working on Super Official with Daym drops over there on his very large channel of over 1 million people there. So
Wow.
If you want to sign up there, as we have gotten several hundred people to do so far that he's been plugging it. I know we've got another video on his channel tomorrow promoting the URL, but you can go to daymcomic.com. The link is also in the description, and just drop your email in there. You're going to get a little something extra if you are one of the early supporters there. And of course, this is going to be on my podcast. Normally, I also do the Jill stream on Wednesdays. We do The Wire. We'll be on episode 10, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Wednesday. Come holler at us. And, of course, the audio from this will be on anchor.fm/Ikari Press. We are also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. And salute to my good friend Jamal Baraka and the good folks over at Planet EJOBN. Over 264,000 strong over there. So hello to all you guys. And of course, if you are on one of the other platforms, who we're on like Twitch and we're on Periscope and all that, if you're watching somewhere else, you want to come hang directly in the chat, it is youtube.com/Ikari Press. Okay. You always have all that to get out. All right. So Adam Lawson, welcome to the channel. And
thank you for having me on, Antonio. I appreciate it. Thank you, brother.
Well, you reached out and I saw the Kill Journal, and it looks really cool. So I liked your book. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. And obviously we have a lot of comic heads that watch. There you go. So I was like, okay, this might be something interesting to our fans. So let's see what you're working with, Adam. Talk to us and tell us about your wares.
Yeah, so Kill Journal is the story about what happens after the horror movie ends, right? After the few survivors are left over, covered in mud and blood, and they're staring at all their dead friends and their houses that have been burned down, and the credits roll, and that's the end of the horror movie. Our story picks up right there, where what's happened after you have been traumatized at that level. Your friends and those you've loved have been killed. And now you have to figure out how to cope with your life. And these few survivors find their way to St. George's church, and where he runs a support group for those who've survived these attacks by revenants, or slashers, some people call them. And there he recruits from that crowd those that are willing to pick up machetes and chainsaws and go hunt down these revenants who took everything from them. So in a way, our traumatized people who don't know how to cope with their life choose to cope by getting revenge. So we have this tale of survivors, plugged into this big mythos of revenants. And now revenants, Antonio, are evil spirits that are back from the dead, bent on revenge, right? And they're in a flesh, they're in a body. They have some supernatural powers sometimes. But what makes them fascinating is that you can't just kill them with a gun to the head, right? Because they're a spiritual being, right? You can't kill Jason by shooting him. You have to take him to Camp Crystal Lake, where he was sort of birthed, and do it there. And so what's unique about the tale is that the monster you're fighting has somewhat of a sympathetic tale in some ways, right? That sometimes there are fringe people or people on the verge who are then pushed over the edge and became these monsters. And then now what they're doing obviously is so much more horrifying than maybe even was done to them, but they've become these killers, and are survivors who are also trying to deal with their own demons inside that are trying to take them out. And so that's the Kill Journal at its heart and its core. And so it's a horror graphic novel, but it's a horror movie with a heart and a conscience, Antonio. Because I think that, when I create works, whether it be for television, because I write and direct for TV as well, and also in comics, and in that I like to take two things, right? Something with a vulnerable beating heart. In this case, people who have had trauma they don't know how to cope with, and then putting them in a supernatural setting. And in this case, the world of revenants, right? So you this violent and vulnerable world, and you get to explore these characters in a supernatural world, so you can focus on the themes and who is it that and how they cope with these problems versus getting tied up with too many things that happen in the normal world, if you will. So that's what I've tried to do, is make a book that's violent and vulnerable, and craft something that in a horror graphic novel isn't just a splatter tale. It's a tale about people trying to overcome their own personal demons. And I had this amazing artist whose works with me on it, named Jason Krager. Some of his more famous books he did for Top Cow, The Darkness, and Evangeline.
Know both of them. Yes.
Yeah, I for sure you knew that you would. You were a man of much skill. And if you don't mind me sharing the screen, I can show you some of the pages.
Yeah, let's look at it. Let's see what you're working with.
Okay, so here we go. So here is, I'll show you from the lines to the colors, because sometimes it's fun to see both, right? You can see here, these are Jason Krager's amazing lines. And if you can imagine, Antonio, he delivers a page a day like this. Pretty amazing artist. And this is St. George. Here you see this first page that his congregation was butchered by a revenant, and ultimately his son. And he's there. He's in so much shock. He's trying to put his son's head back together. And then here a year later, we're here with this is Sydney. This is kind of our point of view character. It's 1 year later, and she's survived an attack. She lost her daughter. She's attempted suicide, but it didn't take. And she's found her way to his church, and ultimately one of his support groups, where he's looking to recruit other people who have survived. And not everybody is built for this, right? And this girl here with this mohawk and the lighter, this is Marty Tanaka, and she's somebody who is a survivor, and you can see the scar here on her back, and she is made of the type of grit that is ready to go for the hunt. And this is who St. George is looking for. And then in this meeting, he talks to Sydney, and we get just a brief glimpse of what happened to her the night she lost her daughter. And he's like, listen, why didn't your suicide work? And she said, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to piece my life back together. And he says, well, let me help you. Let me make you something violent and holy, right? He wants to turn her into kind of this destroying angel in his army. And then the group is attacked by an actual revenant. And there are those who run, and there are those who stay and fight. And the ones who stay and fight ultimately end up as part of St. George's Survivors Club, his army. And if you can see here, Sydney in her moment of debate, whether she stands and fights or whether she runs away, and she chooses to stay and fight. So this is kind of our opening to the tale, and we introduce the world and the group that ultimately becomes, the Survivors Club. And I'm going to show you here. You can send. It's kind of fun to then now see these pages with the amazing art of Steve Cannon, our colorist, and has brought them to life.
I like it. That was one of the things. Like when you contacted me, and you sent me, the link, and I started looking. The way everything was colored, it really kind of adds a certain tone to the overall feel of the book, I thought. And I really thought your colorist did the right thing. Sometimes the colorist, if it's not the right person, can overpower the pages a little bit. And I really felt like your colorist was smart. I really like just here the lighting effects, the way the light's coming through the window. You've got the way the blood and all. Man, it's a really solid coloring job here.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Antonio, because I really, it's tricky to find the right colorist, and sometimes, finding the right pairing, right? Because sometimes you have a good colorist, but with the wrong line artist or the vice versa, it backfires, right? And as Steve and I were going over this, one thing I wanted to do with the book is lots of times when comic books are set at night, you get a lot of blues, right? And your characters kind of have this blue cast to them to create the night effect.
Right.
But I didn't want this book to feel like that, right? Because I feel like you lose touch with your characters when their skin tones aren't warm, right? And so even though, like you see on this page, even though it's at night, I had him warm up all the skin tones of everyone. So that way, even though the world was kind of dark and harrowing, the characters would pop out from their backgrounds. Even kind of here, when she's in this bit of this flashback, right, that the skin tones stand out, or when the blue light here on this bottom panel is coming over, I didn't want it to wash out their skin tones. So that it kept them really separated from the background and more alive.
Oh yeah, I'm digging that though. That's nice, beautiful. Like I said, your book kind of reminds me of like some old school like Vertigo type stuff from back in the day that I would see. That's just, like I said, it's a nice look to the pages. Of course, the link is of course in the description. And, if anyone is interested in Mr. Lawson's wares, please go and check out the Kill Journal. But let me go back a little further, because you said you write for like film and television. So have you worked on anything in particular that our audience might be familiar with?
The most recent TV show I wrote and directed it, was the showrunner for 4 seasons. It was a TV show called Escape the Night. It's a fantasy horror series. It's on YouTube Originals, and it's a really it's a show that's kind of unique, where I filmed the show with the stars of the show don't know what's going to happen, and they live in this fantasy world real time. They deal with monsters, car crashes, explosions, and they experience the show in real time. And all the other actors and events are rehearsed. And it's just, anyways, we were a very successful show, 260 million views, and we ended up winning a lot of streaming awards, and we were YouTube Originals' longest running show.
So that's a YouTube show. So that's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube Originals. So that's their when it first started, it was $12.99 to get it. It was like their Hulu or Netflix version, where they had where it's like Cobra Kai was also on YouTube Originals.
Yeah, a lot of people forget that. They think that the show just came out on Netflix. And I was like, dude, I was watching that on YouTube.
Yeah, that's right. So we were different shows that kind of came out together on that same platform when they used to charge you $12.99 a month to get this extra content. And there was a bunch of shows called Jumper and a whole bunch of TV shows that were running there. And it was in that batch of things. So that's my most recent television show. I also did a celebrity board gaming show called Will Wheaton's Tabletop for 4 seasons. Another show called Spell Singers. These are kind of celebrity gaming shows that were really fun. And so I've worked, I guess, in TV now since I was 21. And so it's been 20 years of it.
Wow.
And I produced a great deal of movies. I produced a movie called How to Make Love to a Woman, another one called The Phoenix Incident. And I wrote a movie called Game of Assassins and another one called Game Therapy, which were released. And so that's kind of my world in TV and film, which I love very much. And it's, that's my, my mainstay living. But I've had a deep love, Antonio, of comic books since I was a child. And there's a really beautiful thing about them, right? Because you get a chance to create in a world where you have different constraints. And in this case, in an indie comic, even less, right? Because it's just me and the artist. And I have a business partner, but it's us just deciding this is what's good, right? This is what's cool. And the people who then tell us it's good or not are the fans, instead of having a studio in the middle. And so there's something kind of liberating about that. And and I find myself, most nights reading versus watching things. And so I wanted to start participating in that world.
Okay. So let me ask you, okay, as a comic book head, what was the first things that you were like turned on to when you were younger?
Yeah, I remember the very first time I was in a comic book shop called Dragon's Keep, getting a book called...
Where is that place? I've heard that name before. Where is that? Where is the Dragon's Keep?
It's in Provo, Utah.
I knew I've heard. Oh my God. Okay. I've been online arguing with fellow nerds and okay.
You get it. So I remember going in there to get a Dungeons and Dragons player's handbook. And I'm in the fourth grade at the time, and I look over and I see Jim Lee's X-Men. And before, I hadn't thought a lot about comics until I saw Jim Lee do comics, right? And I saw all of a sudden Cyclops looked badass instead of like this guy with this blue thing over his head with his visor and kind of the yellow underwear looking kind of dumpy. He was this like muscly, that dude that I was like, oh, I want to be that guy, right? And I remember another character that I love that he created was this character called Bishop. It had the M and he could like absorb energy. I was seeing that when I first saw his art, I was like, oh, comics can be really cool. And that was the first like moment for me.
I have to actually have a timeout because I am an X-Men nerd, and I have to give the great Whilce Portacio his due, because he is actually the person that created Bishop with John Byrne.
Really?
Yes, it wasn't Jim Lee. It was Whilce Portacio, who is a dear buddy of Jim Lee's, actually, which is why they went over the Image together. But yeah, Whilce and John Byrne created Bishop together. And in fact, Art T. Bear was the inker on that issue where Bishop made his first appearance there. The great
Art T. Bear.
Yes, I have that issue. Yes, so I was like, yes, I had to give Whilce his credit. But yes, I love Jim Lee. I'm a big fan of his. Yes.
Yeah, he created something. I think my art tastes have grown since then. But there's like a place in my heart that's like his pencils. I just they get me, right. And so that was kind of the first time. And I love that you know Bishop, because I'd thrown that character out before, and not too many people know, but I loved him because he was like a little bit more dark and brooding, right? And he could absorb people's energy and shoot it back at them. And it was just like he was a slightly distant in the future. Anyways, but so that was kind of like my initial Antonio. And then I remember reading years later, 100 Bullets by Brian Azzarello.
Oh,
so if you can imagine,
yes.
I was doing a music video for the movie Snakes on a Plane. I don't know if you saw this film with Sam Jackson.
I did see it. Was a horrible movie, but I've watched it like 20 times.
Okay, so Sam Jackson came to set, and he had 100 bullets in his hand. And while I was sitting there on set waiting, he was reading 100 Bullets. And I'd never seen the comic book before, and I thought, if it's good enough for Sam Jackson, it's got to be good enough for me, right? So
no, wait a minute. Let me think, because that's what I love. Sam Jackson. He's not a faker. He actually loves comics.
He's the real deal.
Yeah, he's a real. What was it when Brie Larson was doing Captain Marvel? She's like fake geek girl, and she took these phony comic shots. Oh, I'm sitting in my trailer reading a Captain Marvel comic, and it's the shitty Captain Marvel that nobody liked at that point. She's like sitting there reading, and I'm like, if you went way back and was like reading Miss Marvel, like when Chris Claremont had first created it, I actually have Avengers Annual number 10, where this is Rogue's first appearance, and she actually sucked the powers from Carol Danvers, and then all that it's a classic, illustrated by Michael Golden. I have that book, so I was like, it kills me. I understand. I'm like, dude, you're an actor. you're paid to, so you don't have to pretend to the fans that you like comics. If you don't like, and in fact, all the women I've dated, only a handful of them even under, I try to tell them about comics and their eyes glaze over. They don't care about comics. So for Bree, it really struck me as phony for Bree to be sitting there like, yeah, I'm a comic head. And I'm like, you're not into this comic. You really aren't interested in that. But I get it. You're trying to drum up some interest in the movie and whatnot. But
sure.
yeah, it kind of, like I said, she was actually holding up the crappy Captain Marvel that a lot of people didn't care about as much. And people used to like Carol Danvers a lot more than they do now. Anyway, just because of, the things that are inserted into comics now. And it's just, that's actually, kind of you made me think about that when you mentioned Bishop, because you were saying it's cool that I know Bishop. Here it is. Obviously, I'm a black guy. So when black characters mean something to me, especially, growing up, there weren't a lot of them on the shelves. There weren't a lot of black superheroes. And when there were black superheroes, especially like when you're in the 70s and coming into the 80s, the black characters talk like Shaft. They like, go look. Now, God bless Neil Adams. Neil Adams co-created Jon Stewart, and I love Jon Stewart. But when you see Jon Stewart, when he first appears as the replacement for Hal Jordan, he's got the afro. All right, you jive sucker, I'm gonna get, they all talk like Shaft.
Like Shaft.
Yeah, it's that kind of, all the you look at Blade, when Blade was first introduced in, what was it, Marv Wolfman? I might be wrong about that. I know Marv Wolfman, I thought, was one of the co-creators there. But when you get a character like Blade that was introduced, who wasn't actually half vampire when they changed Blade. Like Blade was just immune. He was completely human. And his mother, when Blade was introduced, Blade was completely human, but his mother was pregnant with him and got attacked by a vampire. And then they were able to, she got turned into a vampire, but they saved the baby, and the vampire transferred some kind of immunity to the womb. So vampires would not be able to turn Blade. And, obviously, like I said, they turned his mom into a vampire, which is what they, they kind of played with that with the Wesley Snipes Blade in the first movie. His mom was a vampire and all that. But Blade Eric he was born a human. And then
he spoke like the Shaft.
Yeah, and it was and you look at him, he was just a human guy with some steaks and holy water and a big afro, and it was like, you jive sucker, because all black people in the 70s had afros and all that. So it's like, if you look at how Blade, then later on they said, okay, well, he's a what they call a dampier. He's a so he's like half vampire. He's like half human, half vampire, which would allow him to walk in that's actually one of the retcons that I actually approve of, because I was like, them making, actually giving Blade super strength and stuff. Although I've seen a lot of movies where humans fight vampires and they totally. They get their ass kicked a little bit, but they end up winning or whatever. But let me see. That's generally what I see. But yeah, black superheroes. I had Steve Englehart. I got to interview him last year. He created Misty Knight. Yep. So yeah, Misty Knight is a cool character. But even he admitted that he struggled, trying to make sure that the black character. That's one of the reasons I told him that I loved his work so much, is he actually treated black characters with respect. He took over a failing Captain America that at that point was running, I think, bi-monthly and about to get canceled. They were about to cancel the book. And matter of fact, when Steve Englehart took it over, it was Captain America and the Falcon. So Steve Englehart took over writing Captain America. Sam Wilson, the Falcon, was the co-pilot in that. And they weren't publishing Captain America monthly. It was just bi-monthly. And very close to getting canceled. In fact, Steve admitted that the Marvel editors told him, all right, you can get rid of Falcon now. So that was the same thing. So like you can get rid of the black guy now. So let's make this book sell, because black characters don't sell. So that's the truth. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the reality. I got to talk to him, on and off the air, and I mean, but this is the reality that we've dealt with as far as black characters being in comics. So yeah, they told him, hey, get rid of the black guy. Let's make this thing sell. And he was like, no, the book is called Captain America and the Falcon. I'm going to write both characters, and they're both going to be. And if you look at his run, is obviously considered one of the greatest Captain America runs in history. And, within a year, Captain America was actually outselling Spider-Man. Wow. He treated the character with respect. And treated Sam Wilson, the Falcon, with respect. So I always love. Imagine his when he was writing Luke Cage, Power Man, and Iron Fist. He wrote them. He wrote classic stuff there. And then obviously he went on to write the Avengers. He was the one that put Hank McCoy, the Beast. I've always of the original Jack Kirby, Stan Lee X-Men. That was one of my favorites. So at that point, they had canceled Beast. He was right. I think it was called Astonishing Tales or Amazing Tales. It was a solo book with the Beast where they turned the Beast from gray. He had gray fur, and then he did some kind of experiment, and they made when he turned this up, so it turned him into blue fur. But he had it was a solo book, and then when he took over Avengers, they had canceled it, and he was like, I miss writing Hank. Let me just make Hank an Avenger. And he actually made it work, even though Hank was an X-Men. He made it work, and people loved Hank McCoy as an Avenger. So, that's one of the, and I remember, he was in the Defenders and all this. I mean, Steve Englehart, to me, created Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu, another, which they're making that movie now. I got to get Steve back. I've sent him a few emails, and he's always been really nice to me, but I'd love to. I feel like, especially a lot of these older creators that, guys like pushing 80 or whatever, you don't know how long these guys will be around. And so it's kind of like you want to talk to these people and archive and get their perspectives. But when Steve got mad at Marvel, he went over and worked for DC Comics, and he created the Laughing Fish storyline that they ended up doing on Batman the Animated Series and stuff. The Joker Fish. So you wouldn't have Joker Fish without with a Silver St. Cloud. He was like, I feel like Bruce Wayne should have a love life. So he did things that were really smart, and then he took over Green Lantern. He took over Green Lantern and came up with like Kilowag and all that. But one of the things that they told him at that time when he took over Green Lantern was John Stewart was the Green Lantern. They had kind of sent Hal Jordan into space, never to be heard from. And they were like, okay, get rid of the black guy. It was the same thing. So I thought that was funny that he two different companies, and he was given a mandate to get rid of you got these black guy, get rid of him and bring the white guy back. So this is
so crazy that people thought that way back in the day. Cause it's like, I don't think about it like that. It was just like, oh, Bishop was cool. He was like this brooding dark guy from the future. Like you can like him. I was like, I like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, I was like, oh, I can't relate to this guy. I mean, come on. Everybody wanted to be Will Smith, right? And so I don't.
Thank you.
It's just like I don't think like that. It's like one of my favorite movies growing up, and my parents were strict about the kind of movies we could watch. But Beverly Hills Cop was on TV, and back then they edited for television, right? X Foley, which is to me one of Eddie Murphy's greatest films, and I probably saw it 30 times. Right?
They were supposed to be doing a 4. I heard. I was like, oh, man. Well, I've already seen they showed part of the little trailer for Coming to America 2, and I know Wesley Snipes is going to be in it and all this. So, which Wesley Snipes was in Eddie Murphy's Netflix Dolomite movie. And if you didn't,
which I thought was very good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I thought some people got upset because they did not explore the fact that Rudy Ray Moore was a closeted gay man, and they wanted Eddie Murphy to play a gay character, and they just kind of was just like, oh, they kind of, it was in the background, but that wasn't the focus. It was just like, how is he going to make this Dolomite movie instead of exploring it? They want, I think some of these people, they was like, oh, we want you to explore his sexuality and make a statement and all this kind of thing. So, I mean, Rudy Ray Moore was,
It's hard to make everybody happy with these, right? Because it's like you got 2 hours and you can only do so much.
The performance was incredible. I mean, he should have got.
Eddie Murphy's amazing.
Eddie Murphy did. That was some of the in the last few years, the best stuff I've seen was that, and his work as James Thunder Ely in the Dreamgirls movie that he did with Beyonce and was it Jennifer Hudson and stuff. So that was Perth Comics in the chat. I disagree with you. I love Jubilee. Jubilation Lee. I love Jubilee. I
loved her too.
Yeah, I loved her.
I liked her too. Yeah, she totally worked for me.
But I agree with you that Bishop is great.
Yeah, Bishop was great. He was just such an interesting character because I just there's a couple characters that really stood out to me. Cyclops was one of them. Bishop really stood out to me as well. Of just like, oh, that's the kind of guy I want to be like, when I was a kid. And so, and it's just kind of a shame that like you're saying, these editors are foolish about it. But and because people don't work that way, you can look at people and you go like, oh, I just like that guy. You don't have to look just like you to like him, and so, but
I would say, because one of my favorite writers is Christopher Priest. I've been trying to get him to come on for about a year. I've been trying to get Christopher Priest to come on this channel for about a year. And so far, I've obviously been unsuccessful. But I think before I die, I have to talk to Christopher Priest because he wrote Spider-Man versus Wolverine. And that is probably one of the greatest Spider-Man stories that I have ever read. It is incredible. To people that would read it now, it might seem a little dated because it had the Berlin Wall in it and all that. It's like people, like 30-something years later, like Berlin Wall. What?
What is that? Yeah, we don't even know what that is anymore. Yeah.
East Germany. What is East Germany? They don't know what you're getting at. But Christopher Priest has, especially when he was like, the hell with the comic book industry. He walked away from comics and he started blogging on which a lot of those blogs are archived. He's got another website now, and he still blogs. But when he decided he wasn't ever going to do comics again, he started doing a blog called Digital Priest, and he started airing out the comic industry. He was dropping some serious truth bombs, and really explaining not only some of the racism he had experienced when he had worked for what was it, Jim Salicrup over there at Jim Shooter, my bad. So he worked for Jim Shooter over there at Marvel. Jim Shooter had saw something in him. His name was James Owsley or Jim Owsley. And matter of fact, if you read Spider-Man versus Wolverine, he is credited as Jim Owsley in that book. But Jim Owsley apparently was he was a troublemaker. He was one of these. He wasn't the good Negro that would go along and get along and stuff. And some of his coworkers would, he would come into conflict with them. He blogged about some of his experiences working at Marvel. And one of the people that he said really helped him kind of grow a spine, a backbone, if you will, was Larry Hama. Larry Hama, is a veteran and Asian and all this, and he was, obviously writing G.I. Joe and among other, he wrote Transformers too, I'm pretty sure. And I read his Wolverine when, he's the guy that came up with Wolverine with the bone claws. But Larry Hama actually talked to Christopher Priest when he was young, like in the early 80s, and he had become one of the little junior editors over there. And just like, hey man, speak up for yourself and don't let these people run all over you and everything, and he always, I remember reading that in the blog post, but he was airing certain people out, man. He said, yes, I did experience racism working in the comic book industry. And he also talked about that when the occasion what was he decided to jump off and do his own thing. He did Quantum and Woody, and with which he did with MD Bright, who was also the artist on Spider-Man versus Wolverine. They just like you said, so Quantum and Woody did very well for them. And then, you know, he said whenever he would get job offers from the big two, it was only to write black characters. He couldn't write Batman. You know, he couldn't write Superman.
It's just kind of a shame, right? Yeah, it's kind of a shame because it's like, it's not like it's a two-way door. You can walk on both sides, right? And it's a shame that it got treated that way. And it's a good thing that, you know, it's exciting to see that that's changing. You know what I mean? So people don't have to feel that way, and we can. What's cool about art, right? Is because it's art and letters. We're talking about with comics, right? And what's so cool about it, right, is it's for everyone, right? And it's an opportunity for people to create what's inside their head and hearts, right? And put it on paper so you and I can read it and talk about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I liked about Christopher Priest now, he's got a backbone. He will speak up. He said this a few times in interviews, you know, that like if they call him and they go, hey, Chris, we've got a job for you, and we want you to write Cyborg. You know, over the okay, so you just want me to write the black. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, see, that's a crazy thing, right? He should be able to write anybody, and the vice versa, right? Because it's like he's going to have insight that's special to him, and he's also a talented writer, right? It's not like he can only write what he looks like. He can write women, he can write men, he can write aliens. Come on. So it's good that he called them out and said, "Hey, I can do it all," right? Like,
yeah, and I like that he's
in a box.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I like some people I've heard some people say, well, if you speak up, then they won't give you jobs anymore. And Christopher Priest was like, I don't care. You know, I can write other stuff. I can write novels. I can write other things.
Sure.
So if you don't want me to write, Black Adam or whatever the hell, whatever book, Black Vulcan or whatever, it's like, if I don't write that, that's not going to define my career. I want to write Batman. I want to write Superman. You know, give me Wonder Woman. Let me write Wonder Woman. Let me write the Justice League, which he did. They know. Stop calling me just to write black characters. Although he did take the call when Marvel called him and said that they wanted to relaunch the Black Panther, and that ended up being one of the greatest runs on Black Panther ever. But he did a little twist where he made the white guy the star of the comic. That was funny. Yeah, and
he twisted it on him. They weren't seeing that, and he's like, "What if I do this to show you what I can do?"
Well, it worked. They put his what's the agent character? I can't remember the agent character that the Hobbit guy played, the guy from Sherlock and all that. I can't remember. He was in Black Panther and he was in Avengers and stuff. So I mean, it ended up working. It ended up. Yeah, he was in Captain America: Civil War, and he was in Black Panther, so they actually. But that was his whole point. He was like, maybe because of all the African stuff, that the broader white audience might not be able to relate to T'Challa. So let me put everything in the perspective of this white agent and have him, this liaison, go over, and then he's experiencing things the same way the audience is. And it worked. It worked, and and people were
totally flipped the script. It's great.
Well, I've some of the older matter of fact, when Chadwick Boseman passed away on Comixology, they gave away, there were like over 200 some issues of Black Panther that were available for free to download.
That's cool.
I downloaded every single one of them. My comics, I've got over 200 something issues of Black Panther.
Totally cool.
And I was. But I thought that was cool that Marvel was like, yeah, let's make sure people read Black Panther since everybody's interested in Black Panther right now. And, I thought that was cool. So I just, cool. But Christopher Priest, when he took over Black Panther, I thought what he did was incredible. And like I said, I really respect him. And I think regardless of the race of the character, it's the job of the writer to make the artist care about the characters. And one thing I've noticed is I've been getting emails as my books have been going out to people, and they're reading them and they're sending me emails and stuff like that, and they're contacting me. It's interesting. I've gotten some really interesting emails from different readers, and they were like, man, you really made me care about this character. I cared about that character or whatever. Right. A lot of people like Fame. So people like Fame. So, that was, and it was fun. Kanan and I had a lot of fun creating Fame. I had like a wacky idea for, I was like, hey, what if I create a pimp with a magical cane? And it was like, that's why your book was kind of interesting, because the way you were describing it, with I've got religious, undertones and stuff in my book, and you're not going to be able to, the way you were talking about how you can, kill certain characters and this kind of thing. I was really interested in your concepts for that. I just don't know, like, were you a horror fan coming up, or were you into Bernie Wrightson or any of that kind of thing? Or?
Yeah. So, it's interesting because what I wanted to do, I don't know if you don't mind me sharing the screen there. I'm just going to show some images.
Yeah, let's do
it. Is that with the Kill Journal, is that because, you take a look at, this is one of the revenants here, Dylan, and he's somebody that was betrayed by his brother, turned over to this voodoo cult, and ended up dying in this ritual. And then he comes back as this revenant, right? And the thing about these revenants is because they're really a spiritual problem, right, Antonio? They're a physical manifestation of a spiritual evil or betrayal or darkness, right? And so you can't just take them out, with a gun. You've got to then destroy the spiritual side of it, which may mean going back to the moment when they were betrayed, or going back to this moment in their childhood or a different time that sort of breaks this spiritual revenge. And I've always been such a fan of horror because I think it's such a cool way to experience other themes, right? Because horror in a way is like fantasy, right? These supernatural characters, all that happens in a horror movie is pretty fantastical, right? Kind of beyond what can happen in a regular cop drama. And so it's a really nice way to explore really cool supernatural things, superpowers, if you will, but just in a frightening way. And so the thing about this is it's like with we have our character here. Let me pull him up real quick. St. George, who's leading this group, right? He's like this half-mad, preacher. Who a revenant came through and butchered his congregation. And so he has this sort of spiritual insight to these things, a sort of demonology sort of side. And he keeps a record of all of these revenants and what it is, their origin is, and how they were made, so they can try and figure out how to build a special trap to kill them. Right. And so, hence why it's called the Kill Journal, because in the comic, he keeps a record. And then that's why I wanted to make the book itself this leather-bound edition that actually is a match of what it is inside of the book. So it's a little meta, right? It's like you're reading the book that you're reading about, if you will.
I actually like the way that looks. So that's how the book is going to look.
That's it.
Like leather-bound and.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's a leather-bound edition. So it's like, because I wanted it to feel like frightening and scary and interesting from the moment you touched it, right? From when you just looked at it and you touched it, you're like, I'm in this story world. And then you open the pages, right? And you're taking place. And also, too, that there's designs and symbols inside of this cover that are inside of the story as well. They're kind of fun little Easter eggs to discover that relate to the story and the overall mystery of these revenants and with what they're doing. And it'll be, in the sense that it will be a traditional graphic trade paperback, in the sense that there's going to be, these are the covers, right? And they'll be inserted inside. But that this is how you get to look at it and experience it, as this cool leather-bound book.
Yeah, that looks really cool, man. I like that.
And then And then I also crafted this mask, right? Because it's like, if you're gonna do horror, what's cool about a mask is it's an art piece, right? So this is a movie quality, something I could use on set in a TV show. And it's this movie quality replica that you can wear. It's got elastic straps and padding on the inside, and it's built out of a plastic resin, and it's beautiful because it works in our time when wearing masks, repels viruses, and wearing a mask like this certainly keeps people 6 feet away from you. But it's a cool way to have an art piece that also, something you can hang on a wall, something you put on a mantle, but it also has a practical purpose. You can wear it and it ties into the story. So I wanted to give people an experience that like looked and felt like they were in the story, if you will. So here's some more cool shots of this.
Yeah, and then, like you said, it looks great. I mean, it looks fantastic. I mean, you've got some nice looking premium tiers that people have.
Yeah, and I want to also try to make it manageable. That it's a $40 entry point to get in, right? Which is a little more than your traditional trade, but it's also a much better casing, right? It's a more premium experience, right? Isn't that fun? I think you're somebody who is an indie creator yourself, and with brand, and there's something about like making a piece that feels like what you can't get at the comic book shop, right? They're like, oh, I'm backing this thing, so I'm going to get this experience that's a little bit more custom, right?
Let me get this question here from the Jay Krager said the book will be in color. Yes, we've showed unless there's no black and white edition or any of that kind of thing.
There is not right now. That's Jay Krager. That's my artist on the book who has created all these.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, that's Jason Krager that's created. He did all these cover art images as well. He's an incredible artist, works at a speed that's just insane, and has done really great work for us. And he's continuing. He's pounding out a page a day still. He's really an incredible artist.
Yeah,
and at the quality level. And then this is a cool print we're giving away. Once again, to make the experience special for you. This is a art done by Preston Acevedo, and the colorist is Mike Spicer, who did Wonder Woman, Dead Earth, and Murder Falcon. If you're familiar with those tales.
Oh, I definitely know Murder Falcon. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I'm glad that you know Murder Falcon.
I definitely, I follow him on Twitter and Instagram.
Daniel Warren Johnson is just like, he's deep in my heart. I just love what he's doing. And Murder Falcon has been one of my favorite books in years.
Yeah, that was an interesting concept. I'd love to talk to him sometime because he's got a Wonder Woman. One thing I saw him posting on social media, there was a Wonder Woman story that DC gave him to do. And I was like, that's interesting to give Daniel Warren Johnson a Wonder Woman story. But I mean, it looks like he's knocking that one out the park too. All the images I saw from the Wonder Woman story look badass. I was like, that dude is incredibly talented.
Yeah, he's the real deal. I totally right. And he's writing and doing the art. It's like he's a one of a kind type. He's really good. But Jason is delivering some amazing stuff. And we wanted to build, I think, so when you're doing a backing campaign, the most fun thing to get in stretch goal is more pages, at least for me. And so I built these stretch goals that are going to be these 6-page mini stories. So imagine you read the 88-page graphic novel, right?
Right.
And then in back, there's 4 6-page stories that give the origin of each of our heroes, the night that they were attacked by a revenant. And so what's cool about that is I didn't want to take up the whole meat of the graphic novel, giving everybody's origin. There's a piece of it, we get a little flashback or a panel or two, but then we can stay focused on the story. And then once you've taken the ride, then you can explore a little bit more. So that's what our 4 stretch goals are. Is these 6-page mini stories about each of our hero characters. There's Sydney, Marty, Finch, and Brecken. That are
great character designs, by the way. Yeah, so it's like, I wish some of you that will be listening to this on audio, head on over to Indiegogo and just type in the Kill Journal.
Yeah.
And yeah, go to Indiegogo.com and type in the Kill Journal, and it should pop right up for you there. Or of course, you can come here to my channel, youtube.com/Ikari Press, and find the video here, and just click the link that is in the description there as well. It is yeah, very nice looking character design. So Mr. Krager did a bang up job there.
He's the real thing. He
Yeah.
is definitely the real thing. He's the real thing. And I want to show you here just a little. What's kind of a cool piece is one of these mini stories. You can see. Let me show you that are done. I'm gonna try and swap the share real quick. So with each of the mini stories in the back, they're done by a different artist and a different writer. Because I loved the idea of being able to have other voices and creators in the world that could leap off of those first 88 pages. So this is the story about Finch. He grew up on a Mexican border town. Dad was a dog fighter. One day a dog didn't show, and he threw his son in the pit to go fight the dog. And then soon enough, he was raising him like one of his fighting dogs. But you can see these beautiful lines that Maxi Dallow delivered that built this really cool story that deals with this revenant here, Mr. Crispy.
And I actually wanted to ask you, did not my buddy Brian Chris Gow, a Six Gun Gorilla, did he not contribute part of one of your little mini stories? Because I love Brian.
You're looking at it.
Yeah,
you're looking at it.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah. I know Brian is such a buddy. I love Brian. Great writer. And after I read Six Gun Gorilla, I was like, I
love Six Gun Gorilla.
Loved that story, right? I was like, I need this guy in our world. And so this is his story right here about Finch and Mr. Crispy, which is kind of a creation of Brian's. This name, we were talking about a revenant that was attacked by some guys. Fireworks were shoved in his pockets, and he lit him on fire, and he died in the burn unit. And he was a homeless guy who was troubled, and he comes back as into this revenant. And Brian was like, I've got the name for it. He's Mr. Crispy. And so here he is as Mr. Crispy, burning all around him. But yeah, this is Brian's story. And Maxi Dallow is the artist who did some really, really amazing line art, which will be getting colored, and hoping we're going to get to unlock all these cool additional stories.
Yeah, I was one of the first people to have Brian on, because I just happened to see I was like, I had him on, and he came on my channel, and we clicked. I thought we have quite a bit in common, and just a really super nice guy. I really like him. So and I was happy to see that the next chapter of Six Gun Gorilla got successfully funded. I know he raised at least $19,000. So he did very well with it. So writers should write, and I'm probably writing too many things right now. So, but that's and as much as I'm writing now, I've got like 4 or 5 other scripts that I'm like plotting right now. Bugging Kane, and try to give him ideas of what we're going to do going into the new year and beyond.
Kanan is a great artist. He's a great artist. I love what he does. He does.
Kanan's a jerk, and I hate him. He's worst person on the planet. That's my brother, though. I love him. He be laughing because he be pissing me off. He'll do something of it. Kanan's a wild spirit, and every now and again he'll go off the reservation and kind of do his own thing. Like, what the hell are you doing? It's like, this wasn't what we discussed when we were talking about the character designs, I thought it would be cool if I did this or that. And I was like, Kanan, this wasn't, I have a story written out that specifically calls for the character to do this. And now that you've added that, I'll have to change things. So this doesn't quite work for what I had planned story-wise. But I don't know, Kanan's always, he's always coming up with different ideas. And a lot of the stuff he comes up with, when I described the character Dark Santana, I was telling him what it was. And when he, he's like, hey, it's an evil Santa Claus. And I was like, no, it's deeper than that. You gotta know that it's deeper. And I started explaining some of the lore. And when I explained to him the secrets, that the public does not know yet, he was like, oh my God. And then he came back a couple days later with what we now know is the design for Dark Santana, and it's incredible, and he knocked it out the park, and and that's what I'm so glad to have him working with me on these books and everything. So
well, that's good. I mean, artists need to throw some curveballs, because they they have a lot of genius tucked in there that you're hoping to coax out for sure. Absolutely. Well, this has been cool. This is cool to talk with you. You have such deep insight on comics and their history, and it's fun to talk to somebody who's done the deep dive.
I have never read a comic in my entire life. I have no idea what you're referring to, sir. But no, Adam, this looks fun, and looks like where are you at on the funding? It looks like you were at least halfway there.
Yeah, let me pull it up real quick here.
Yeah.
So we are, we're over halfway there, 57% there. We dropped it on Tuesday, and we're on Thursday.
Okay. So you've only been open a few days.
Yeah, just a couple days.
Oh, okay. So that's outstanding. Okay, so yeah, guys, get out there and keep making that pot grow, because you're almost at $7,000. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, we're really happy with the response from it and the excitement, and to see the backers come on. And a lot of our backers on my first book, The 8th, have come back around to dip back into the well, and that's great. It's nice to see people, you make an impression that brings them back. So if you're thinking about, you want a cool indie graphic novel that you can't get anywhere else, and certainly not with that cool cover, the Kill Journal is the place to be.
All right. Well, Adam, this has been fun, sir. I've enjoyed our chat. Let me see if there. Hold on. Let me do this. I want to get you on the screen here and let you. Let me see. Okay, Solo. So tell people how they can reach out to. Yeah, you're in prime time, sir. How can people reach out to you? And I see you've got the Failed Superhero, but yeah, tell people your social medias and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so the best way to be in touch with me, gosh, the lighting on this, but so the best way to reach out to me is you can get me on Twitter at Failed Superhero. You can get me on Instagram or Facebook at Failed Superheroes Club. And if you really want to get in on it, go to Indiegogo and look up the Kill Journal, and you can catch me there.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend going to Indiegogo and typing in the Kill Journal. But let me, okay, so Adam Lawson, thank you for being here. Let me do the rundown.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
So I will be back tomorrow. We will have Drew Esch here. He will be talking about Captain Love Book 2. We had him here for Captain
he's
Love
a good
Book
man.
1. Yeah, so we had Drew here with Captain Love number 1. So yeah, he's coming back for the sequel, and of course, so let me see, when is that? I can't remember what time, but it'll be here tomorrow, and it'll be on my podcast and all that good stuff. You can catch the audio from this on anchor.fm/Ikari Press, and of course, on all major streaming platforms. So just like if you're on iTunes, type in Ikari Press, we should come right up. And again, thanks to all the good folks over there on Planet EJOBN that have been watching, and we appreciate you guys. And if you are on one of the other platforms, it is youtube.com/Ikari Press. But we're going to get out of here. Of course, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, right here on YouTube, all at Ikari Press. And then if you type in IkariPress.com, it will take you directly to Brand Way of the Gun. We are moving forward. We're going to, if we hit 30, let's go to 31. And
let's do it.
That's what we're doing. But Adam, anything you would like to say before we close this bad boy out?
No, other than indie comics are great. Get in on the ride.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, go to daymcomic.com and sign up for the pre-mail. This has been a fun experience working with Daym Drops, and him exposing my work and Kanan's work on such a huge platform. So I appreciate him. And